Yeah, absolutely. We've had actually Marie Forleo a couple of times for the How to Academy, and also and she talked about this. Similarly, Elizabeth Gilbert, who's another kind of queen of
Mm.
creativity, said that perfection is fear dressed up in heels and a mink coat. So,
Yeah.
it's clear that for sort of the playful creativity that we need, we must let go of this idea of making everything perfect. And in a sense, I suppose, you talked about it just now. You were saying in the book, let your imagination run wild. So much of this is about just opening the door to our kind of playful selves. It's about play, isn't it? And letting that into our lives and recognizing just how important that is.
Yeah, I think we are so, I mean, the way I think about it is if you imagine like the Mad Men era, imagine one of those ad execs going home at the end of the day, carrying his desk on his back with his typewriter, his filing cabinet, all the communications from his clients, probably taking his clients home and like being in bed, like with all that stuff. But that's kind of what we do when we have our phones sitting beside our beds. Like it's just weird. And it's like we need to just cut out all that noise. And I think being playful and adopting a mindset of curiosity is so good for us. People have mentioned the Peter Pan effect with colouring, that it sort of takes you back to those childhood days. There's a bit of nostalgia to it. And the chances are, if you're not a colorist already, when you do pick up your coloring pencils for that first time, that'll be the first time in a long time that you've colored in a picture. And there's nothing to say that you won't feel the way that you felt the last time you did. So before you had a mortgage, before you know about Brexit, before any of that stuff, it's just a really lovely way to get back in touch with that younger person, to indulge that side of you, and to sort of, I don't know, like tease out that way of thinking and being.
Absolutely. And when it comes to that playfulness, I feel like the content, the subject matters that you encourage people to draw sort of feed into that. So it's cakes and balloons and flowers. Is that important to you, the subject matter? I mean, feel free to show some more of the pages while
Yeah,
you answer that question. Yeah.
100%. So a lot of the work that I do is quite floral based. I like a butterfly as well. I find colouring butterflies and drawing them really soothing. I think it's the symmetricalness of it. It really appeals to me. But everything, and here's some fruit. All the imagery in this book in particular was just inspired by, rather selfishly, things that I like. So everything in here brings me joy. There's a whole page of stamps here because I love getting mail post. And there's a recipe page as well. So this is my grand's famous lemon butter cake. And I love the idea of creating illustrated recipes. So I show you how to do it. There's like a page over here with like loads of different baking equipment. But in terms of what I draw, I am massively, massively selfish, and I only take on a project if I love it. So nature is always a big theme for me. I wouldn't do a book based on architecture because I don't really like it that much. I would never do, I don't know, I see like those swear word colouring books. Very happy for the people that have them and need them. But for me, I'm like, nah, it's not really my thing. So I think by being utterly selfish and choosing what I do, I make sure that I love every project. And that allows me to instill just a different kind of quality to it. I love nature. I think being in nature is such a wonderful reset. I find it completely inspiring. And, if you can imagine the way that you feel when you walk through like a beautiful forest or you're sitting in a sun-dappled garden, it's so calming and peaceful. And I really hope that people get that kind of energy from the book. And I think coloring nature, it's the second best thing to actually being in nature. So that is why there's a lot of leaves.
Well, I think you've definitely chosen chosen subjects not selfishly, in the sense that they're quite loved by, well, I certainly find you've chosen sort of coffee and cake and all the things that generally people love to have in their day. And so obviously it's lovely to be able to draw those. I mean, that's interesting. So you feel perhaps that through drawing nature, through drawing flowers, which you do a lot, do you perhaps sort of also does have the effect of helping people to kind of connect with and sort of have a renewed appreciation for the natural world, and that seems to drive a lot of what you do.
Yeah, I think so. I can't imagine getting the same sort of calming vibes from coloring like a sports car or a big grey building. Like, I mean, maybe that's just me, but to me, I'm like that. Nah, it doesn't really do anything for me. But there's something, I mean, I guess there's a reason why florals are just always in fashion, because there's something about a beautiful flower, a really pretty botanical, that just speaks to us. And as humans, we are instinctively drawn to them. And the other good thing that I like about the kind of drawing that I do is I do what I call my inky hybrids. So sometimes I'll get emails or messages from people going, this little flower on the bottom of this page of the book, and they'll send a photo. And what is it? Because we want to look it up to colour it in the right colours. And I have to admit that I've just made it up. I take the leaf from one plant and the petal shape from another and the bud from another, and I combine them all to just make up a lot of imagined botanicals. Sometimes there's a fruit that might look vaguely like a pineapple, but then it's got a funny leaf or something to it. And the reason that I do that is it means that there is no right or wrong colours, and no horticulturist can say to me, actually, that buttercup should have 5 petals and you've drawn 6. So it's kind of like my get out free card. But it also means that you are not constricted to having to feel that you are obligated to go and look and find what that flower is and what color it should be and what color this tip of the leaf is. Like it's just yours, it's imagined. So there's no right or wrong, there's just your way.
And again, all part of the child and playfulness in us, because you didn't sort of feel that you were obliged, the sky could be pink and well, it can be pink, but you could do everything not as it's meant to be. But when you talk about, just to go back a little bit to that kind of idea of the joy of sharing as a community, as you do, and I've seen, you share people's extraordinary drawings and the ways they've interpreted your designs and taken them and done their own things with them. And how does that get in the way, I suppose, of drawing with abandon and not worrying? Because once you want to show people your work, you do tend to then feel that sense of comparison, and that little perfectionism sort of sneaks back in.
Well, I always think and say comparison is the thief of joy. So it's a slippery slope. It's one that I'm prone to myself. So I'm not standing here preaching, like it's something that I deal with every day. But the way that I think about it is I can listen to Adele singing and be blown away. Like it's amazing. But that doesn't stop me from belting out a power ballad in the shower. So just because you see somebody doing something amazing doesn't mean that you can't have your go, even if you know it's maybe not going to be the same. So I try to take inspiration and not intimidation from the stuff that I see. Within seconds on Instagram, I will see artwork that I will never in my lifetime be able to replicate. But I'm not meant to, I'm meant to see that image and think that's an interesting color combination. So whilst I'm not going to color that the same way, I might use those colors. And I also just think these people that share their work, they often share tutorials, tricks and tips. And we should just be looking at their feeds and their work and drawing inspiration from there, and not letting that be the full stop. Like if you're looking at stuff and it's preventing you from being creative, you need to not look.
And I understand that over the sort of troublesome and unsettled years we've had, there's been a real upsurge in interest in buying your books and in engaging in your work. Tell us a little bit about that from all sorts of areas.
Yeah, I think just as the category itself has grown, more and more people have discovered that it's a lovely way to relax, to decompress at the end of the day. So many people in different walks of life use it to de-stress. Like it's so accessible. Like, people are saying, oh, I need to go to a meditation class, and like that's can be quite tricky. And like, there's so many things that get in our way. Whereas creativity and coloring and drawing, it's portable. You just pop your bag and your pencils, your book, and your pencils in your bag. You can take it with you. You can do it on the commute. You can do it in the cafe. You can do it in your lunch break. And I think people, like the past couple of years, for sure, it's been a tricky time. And I think people were looking for self-care things that they could complete at home and to build up a practice that would support their well-being. And for a long time, we didn't have many options for how to do that. So colouring and creativity was perfect because you can do it at home. You didn't need anything fancy. I mean, you could go and get the really expensive pencils if you want, but the ones that your kids have got in their pencil case will work just as well. And it's also a really nice activity that you can do as a family. So, for example, we saw a lot of people coming to colouring and creativity during lockdown, because if you're all sitting around the kitchen table attempting to do some homeschooling, a bit of creativity is a nice way to break that day up. It's a good conversation starter. It's not going to have the kids on their screens. So I think just the last couple of years have been quite challenging for a lot of people, and that need to find healthy habits and self-care routines has led a lot of people to colouring and creativity.
That's really interesting. You talk about the equipment. So and you talk about it in the book. You don't need. I mean, the real key is that it's not about going off and spending. I mean, it's very economical.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can, if you wanted to, spend all your money on very expensive colouring pencils. I personally don't use those ones. I have a couple of sets, and I basically want to cry every time I sharpen a pencil because I'm like, wow, that's £5 worth of pencil sharpenings on the floor. It's like, it's hideous. And you would never use one of those pencils and do like a sky, because you would literally just be hyperventilating as you burnished your money away. So I don't think those pencils are for people like us. They're like artist grade pencils. And if you are making a piece of art that you're then going to sell for like 20 grand, you don't want it to color fade when they put it on the wall. You need the fancy pencils. But for us mere mortals, I really champion a few brands that you can find, you know, in the supermarket, easily online, in the arts and crafts shops. I think it's about making your mark. You don't need the fancy pencils. That shouldn't be another barrier. Like, oh, I can't be creative until I've got the right stuff, or I can't be creative until I've got a studio that looks like it belongs on Pinterest. Like, those are just excuses that are getting in your way. I quite often still use the art supplies that I bought when I was in art school. So when I was in art school, as I mentioned, I was broke, as all art students are. And we had a wee art supply shop in the art college. And I would buy a certain kind of fine liner because it was the best one that I could afford with the money that I had, a certain kind of pencil. I still use the exact same tools today. I don't think you need to break the bank to be able to be creative. And often the limitations that you have are what unlocks your creativity. So for me, I couldn't afford the really fancy pen where you poured the ink in and you had the reusable nib. You know, I was using the fiber tip pen that people were using to like write their shopping list with, and it made a certain style of artwork for me. And I couldn't afford a computer or a digital camera, so I just couldn't do digital printing. So I discovered the black and white, you know, silkscreen printed stuff. I think often those perimeters and restrictions are what gives you the push to find creative solutions.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that the simplicity, though, is so important to this, because we are all, whatever we, you know, there are hours, but whenever you read something saying, oh, carve out more hours in your day, it just puts you off. And this is very accessible. It's very easy. You know, you can do it with, as you say, very basic things, but you get a lot of reward for that kind of limited time and money, which I just think is really important today, when we're so often so encouraged to do things that demand too much of those. And what about for you? By the way, I should tell people listening, and I will reluctantly stop asking my own questions in a moment, even though I have many more selfish ones. And please do ask any questions, and I'll get through as many of them as possible before the end of the event. But what, may I ask, is next for you, or what's going sort of on the horizon?
Well, currently I'm running the free 30 Days of Creativity course. So I set up a wee course where I would work through the book one exercise at a time and share videos and help people to instill that healthy habit. So I love the idea of making it a really immersive experience. I quite often will do live events and colour alongs and things at a book launch, and it's just such a nice way to bring a book to life and to, you know, get all the community involved. So there's that. As an illustrator, I'm working on a few commercial projects. I'm about to tackle a big project with the Archie Foundation at Aberdeen Children's Hospital, which is lovely, and a new book which will be out this time next year that I'm not gonna tell anyone about because I haven't done enough of it yet. But it's really exciting. I find I get my best creative ideas when I'm focused on other things. The minute I sit down to say, right, I'm going to do a book, it gets a little bit tricky. But because we've been so busy with the launch, the ideas have just been flowing. And also, weirdly, lockdown was really good for me in terms of ideas. I think some people say to me, do you ever run out of ideas? I'm like, no, my big worry is that I will not have enough lifespan to create all the stuff that I've got ideas for. And the ideas keep coming. So I don't know how this is going to work. But I have notes and bits of paper and voice notes on my phone. Quite often, when I'm walking, I'll have an idea for a page and I'll leave myself a little voice note, or I'll have an idea in the middle of the night and scribble it down. And so this bit of the bookmaking process is all about accumulating all those ideas, working out which ones are going to go together, and then they end up in a book.
Well, you'll have to come back for the next book. Of course, we won't hear about it until we see you in the screen, or maybe live in person, talking about the next one. Let me ask some practical questions I think are coming in from the audience. Then we might go back to some more lateral questions. But is there a way, as somebody asked, to learn to put colours together? I'm not arty, and I try to colour in. I end up sticking to 3 colours. It's interesting because I love them, but I want to learn to make prettier combinations. How can I learn to do that, or just stay with my 3 happy colours? What's your advice to that interesting question?
Well, you kind of put me to the post. I was about to say limited color palette. So some people have sets of coloring pencils, like we've got the 300 pencil set, and my heart beats at that, not out of excitement, but I'm like that. Oh, so every time you pick up a pencil, you have to say no to 299. Like, to me, that just feels overwhelming and immediately makes me anxious. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you open the menu and it's a book. Like, I like the kind of places where there's a chalkboard with 3 things and you pick off of there. So for me, I would say use a limited color palette. Great idea. In terms of finding colors that go together, you can Google and watch YouTube videos about color theory and understand the actual stuff, like the science that goes between what colors go well. My feeling is you're better just to look at other things, like get inspiration from pictures, from other people's coloring, find color palettes that appeal to you and just copy those colors. So maybe you find a picture of an ice cream cone, and the ice cream is one color, the cone's another, there's like a dollop of sauce and some sprinkles. Almost extract out those colors, find them in your pencil set, hold them in your hand, and just color with those pencils. I think the more colors that you add in, the more jumbled up it can be. So I definitely like working in a limited color palette. Or what I find works really well is to like pick one color and just color in different shades of it. So different shades of pink always works for me. I like to add a little bit of yellow and red just to break it all up, and then like a flash of lime green just like sets it all off. But I think looking at other people's work or other color combinations in nature is always a good idea. Stick to those limited color palettes so you don't get overwhelmed with all the choice. And if you've got 3 happy colors, maybe like just add a few more shades of your happiness.
And somebody says, just again, another sort of on a practical level, how they find out about your next live class.
So if you go to johannabasford.com/30 days, you will get the link to sign up for the live for the free course. It's free. It's going to be online forever. So we did start 2 days ago. We're doing it through the whole of November. But the way that I'm doing it is you get an email and a video every day, but then all the content's going to be evergreen. It will sit on that course page forever. So you can dip in and out of it. You can repeat a day. You can do your 30 days now. And then maybe in the new year, like that time of year where we make these ridiculous resolutions that we say are they're going to last a year and they never do. Why not instead forget all that junk and just say, I'm going to do the 30 days of creativity again in January and come back and do the course then? I think having the course and the book together are just such a lovely combo. And if you are getting the book for Christmas or gifting it to somebody for Christmas, let them know about the course and all that stuff that's there, because it will definitely like supercharge their experience. And I think giving you that strong foundation will give you the most chance of ingraining creativity into your daily lifestyle.
And that was something I was wanting to ask me, into your daily life, and I emphasized at the beginning the kind of flexibility of it all. But and you've just said very interestingly, you found that you were much more sort of creative in lockdown and ideas come to you quite liberally. But do you think there's a time of day or a space and a place that people should try and be? I mean, or is it really kind of grab anywhere and any time that sort of suits you? Some people talk about the kind of morning as being the best time. I just wondered if you had advice on that side.
Yeah, I think it's super different for everyone. So I'll just share what works for me. I like in the morning when everyone is quiet. I don't do such great creative work in the evening, mainly because I'm knackered. I'm like really conscious that I have to be awake for small children through the night still. So I like the mornings. I like a nice bright sunny window. Colors look different in different light. So under artificial light, your colors aren't going to show true. So if you can color either underneath a nice bright daylight light bulb or by a sunny window, perfect. Do that. You'll see your colors really crisp. It won't strain your eyes. I like coloring at a desk. I'm not such a big fan of coloring on my lap. Somebody said to me the other day, can we color on bean bags? Like, well, you can, but I would really struggle. So I think it's about finding the things that work for you, that, you know, like maybe you are a lap colorist. Maybe that is your sweet spot, in which case, by all means, do it. I think the thing is to find the stuff that works for you and not to try shoehorn yourself into someone else's perfect routine, because just because it works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And then you might think that creativity isn't working for you. And actually, it's just that you don't like colouring on the sofa. You're more of a breakfast bar kind of girl. So I think you need to be flexible and keep trying different things and see what works.